Welcome back. This past week in Israel, there was a huge celebration called Chag HaSigd, and it is an Ethiopian holiday.
You know, the Jews of Ethiopia have been there for many, many generations. And it's a fascinating story how they went from Israel to Ethiopia and 3,000 years later back to Israel. Let's go on an exploration and see all about Ethiopian Jewish history.
This is my home. This is my motherland. This is the place where I want to be. A home no one can take away from me. This is my home. This is my chosen land. This is the place I live to defend. Hoping to find someday capture an end. This is my home. This is my promised land. This is the place where I want to be. A home no one can take away from me. This is my home. This is my only land. This is the place where I want to be. That will live on for all eternity. This is my
It's time for a new exploration back into history of our people. Let's see where we can go today. Oh, there we are. Awesome. So we're here, wherever here happens to be. Let's go explore. There have been Jews living in Ethiopia as early as the time of the building of the first Beit HaMikdash, just after King Shlomo. After the building of the Beit HaMikdash, it seems as though the Jews split, as we learn in Melachim, in the Navi. The Jews split into two different kingdoms, those of Yehuda, which was Yehuda and Binyamin, and those called Yisrael, which was the rest of the Jewish people. Some of the people from Shevet Dan, and maybe Naphtali, Gad, and Asher as well, decided that they could no longer live amongst the Jewish people, and they moved and created their own kingdom in an area called Cush, then today known as Ethiopia. And they established their own little kingdom there within the Ethiopian land called Beta Yisrael, the house of the Jewish people. And they've been there ever since for almost 3,000 years, with a deep desire and a yearning to move back to Eretz Yisrael. Like us, they faced toward Israel when they daven. Their Torah, which they had always with them, written in a different language called Amharic, was always with them. But because of how early on Shevet Dan split from the rest of the Jewish people, they didn't have our Mishnah, our Talmud, and the rest of our Masorah. They've been there for many, many, many years. Let's fast forward in history. In the early 1960s, after Israel became a country in 1948, the Israeli Council began preparing to take in all the Jews of Ethiopia who have been living separately from us for almost 3,000 years. Once they began establishing a system, they sent some medical professionals to Ethiopia to help prepare the Ethiopians for a transition into Israel. November 18th, in 1984, began something called Operation Moses. This took 6,800 Ethiopian Jews who walked from Ethiopia all the way across the Sudan, where they were met by Israeli aircrafts and they were lifted and brought to Israel. The first large wave of Ethiopians leaving Ethiopia, Ethiopian Jews going to Israel. Before that, there were only 250 Ethiopian Jews living in Israel. To get that done, $60 million were raised from Jewish organizations around the world to help save these Jews who were living in the Sudan and Ethiopia. For many years following that, there was a quiet. Ethiopian Jews in Israel had established themselves. Ethiopian Jews left in Ethiopia were living in somewhat of a stressed manner. With the revolution in 1991, an emergency airlift was set up, and on May 24th, 25th, 1991, something called Operation Solomon, where Israeli aircrafts flew in to the middle of the desert and picked up and saved an enormous amount, 14,325 Jewish people in a 36-hour time period. The last flight out is recorded as the flight with the most amount of people ever in history, 1,122 people on board at the time of landing, 5 more than at the time of takeoff, because 5 children were born. Today, the Ethiopian Jewish community has been well established in Israel, and in 2008, Israel declared a national holiday, Chag Sig, which is celebrated on the 29th of Cheshvan each year. This holiday is a get-together of all of the Ethiopian Jews, and they face toward the place where the Beit HaMikdash will one day soon be rebuilt.
הבאנו שלום עליכם, הבאנו שלום עליכם, הבאנו שלום עליכם, הבאנו שלום, שלום, שלום עליכם. ארץ אבק חלב, חלב ודבש, ארץ אבק חלב, חלב ודבש, ארץ אבק